Now, the moon is also the Ahamkara, which is the I thought, the sense of separate existence. So the sun represents our soul nature, that influence that doesn't require form. It's the infinite pure consciousness. And the moon is the solidification of that infinite pure consciousness. So if you think of the sun as spirit and the moon as nature, and the moon, when it's healthy, it reflects that spirit. When it's not, it identifies with all the things around it, so it becomes too externalized, and then it becomes unhappy. So a moon that is overly influenced by external things, and that's usually a moon that has, bad situations going on with it, bad dignities, bad aspects, tends to be unhappy, whereas a moon that is able to look within and pay more attention to spirit, it's a healthier moon and it's a happier moon. Now, as we've talked about previously, whenever you're assessing someone's personality, you want to look at the moon. If the moon has Saturn, Mars, Rahu, a malefic Mercury influence in it, that'll show a person who's used to more difficult things in life. There'll be more suffering in their life, more depression, more anger, more agitation, more frustration, more craziness. But the thing is for them that'll be normal. They'll think that's just the way it is because their moon becomes used to whatever they experience. Their consciousness gets conditioned by that. If we have the moon influenced by Jupiter, a really nice sun in aspect, or a very benefic Mercury, then this makes a person typically happier, more easygoing, and comfortable with the nicer things in life, the more comfortable, pleasant things in life. And what happens when you get two people together who have these opposite? Well, then you get difficulty, because on one hand, one person is more used to hardship and stress, and so when things are going well, that feels very strange for them. It feels hard for them. It doesn't make any sense, and so they'll have a tendency to consciously or unconsciously create problems for themselves. Whereas if you get a person with a lot of benefic influences on their moon with someone who has negative influences, they'll be very uncomfortable because they're used to a life of ease and things just working out and figuring things out easily, and it won't make much sense for them. So the point is, when you're looking at the moon, you need to understand what does the moon represent, and you also need to understand what are the influences on the moon, because when it comes to people, it will help you see, are two people going to get along well or not. Oftentimes with Mars, there's the idea of Kuja Dosha, meaning there's too strong of an influence of Mars on the moon. And a lot of the old books say that if a woman has Kuja Dosha, her husband's going to be killed, or vice versa. And maybe in the past that was the case. But essentially what that means is that when there's a lot of pressure from Mars on the moon, that shows a very forceful, it can show a very forceful individual or a very adventurous, bold, energetic individual. And that can put a lot of pressure on the relationship. And so if you have someone who does not have that, meaning someone who does have that, the relationship will have difficulties because one person will be putting too much pressure on that relationship. And in the end, it won't work because there'll be an imbalance there. Whereas if you have someone who has Mars on the moon and another person who has Mars on the moon and they get together, they will balance each other out because they will have equal amounts of pressure on that relationship. So one will give 75 tons of pressure, silly example because we're talking about weight, but anyway, 75 tons of pressure, and the other person will give 75 tons of pressure, and that'll make it even. Whereas if we have someone else giving 75 tons of pressure and the other person only giving 15, well, eventually the 15 person is going to get crushed. So this is one of those ways that we can look at the moon to get a sense of what is the individualized consciousness like, because that's what the moon reflects. What will they like? What are their tastes? How do they interact with the world? How popular are they? How connected to the people around them are they? The stronger the moon, the more they'll be able to understand those people around them. If you think of people who have personality disorders where they can't relate to or understand the people around them, it's caused by